I feel very called to become a member of the Catholic Church.
Love the Catholic Church. It's just the best place to be.
From the studios of EWTN, this is Open Line. In North America, call toll-free 1-800-585-9396. That's 1-800-585-9396. Outside North America, call 1-205-271-2985. You can also send an email to openline@ewtn.com.
2 minutes past the hour. And this is Open Line on EWTN Radio, coming to you live across the country, the United States, around the world, from our Radio Studio 1 in our headquarters here at EWTN in Irondale, Alabama. This is Elena Rodriguez filling in for Jack Williams, still traveling. Will be back with us tomorrow, God willing. He has been a Roman Catholic, very much, because he's been in Rome. He'll have a lot to tell us, Barbara, and looking forward to that.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. I mean, for Rome for 2 weeks, he's going to get a good dose of it, huh?
He is roamed. And the voice of Barbara McGuigan is whom you hear right now. She is our pro-life warrior princess, talking about, on a Tuesday as always, about all issues pro-life from womb to tomb. Barbara, a delight to have you back here on EWTN Radio.
Well, thank you so much, Elena. It's good. I'm a little tuckered out today from this weekend.
I wouldn't guess why. Why would that be?
Well, we had 6 of our grandchildren here with their moms and dads, and from Good Friday until Easter Monday, and they are very, very precious. Their ages begin at 9, and we go down to 6 months. It was, and we spent the whole Holy Saturday at Disneyland. It was very, very much fun, but it's, you just got to keep your eyes on 6 children. Yes, it does.
Yes.
And they were deliriously happy, I'll tell you.
I would
It
be.
was wonderful.
I would be as well. What a blessing it is. And we want to have the blessing of having you call us. Ask your questions about pro-life issues from womb to tomb. The number is 1-800-585-9396. The lines are already ringing, so this would be a good time to get your question in and talk to our brave call screener, Mighty Mac Gubinski. The number again, 1-800-585-9396. And here's another way to join our simulcast on YouTube by going to EWTN, the channel on YouTube, which is youtube.com, and then you type in the search bar EWTN channel. That takes you to our very own EWTN Open Line channel chat on YouTube. All those technical words, Barbara. I mean, I got to think about them. So our media manager, Mr. Jeff Burson, nice person, and myself, we will both be chatting with you. You can submit your question. We'll pass it along to Barbara, and we will all be together celebrating Easter. And it is the Easter octave, Barbara, so I have to wish you a very blessed and happy Easter.
Yes, and same to you. I mean,
Thank
it is
you.
the greatest feast, really, when you think about it. I got a kick out of this meme that was on Catholic Vote this morning. Do you get Catholic Vote, Elena?
I do not.
Okay, well, the meme is by Charles Colson. It's a quote. They call them memes now. They just take one quote. But Mr. Colson, do you remember him? Do you remember who he was? He went to prison after pleading guilty to obstructing justice, I think the cause was, in one of the criminal plots that basically ended up undoing the Nixon administration. Watergate. You probably, that, right?
Sure.
And
yes,
then he
that I
went
do.
to prison, right? And after having a religious awakening behind bars, which many of them do. That's a good thing. God turns things into good all the time. But he spent much of the rest of his life ministering to prisoners. He started a new group, and it was called Prison Fellowship Ministries. He died at the age of 80 in 2012, so he's no longer with us. But he had a major conversion. And, he did preach the gospel for the rest of his life. He forged a coalition of Republican politicians, evangelical church leaders, and Roman Catholic conservatives that many think has a really pronounced influence on American politics. So here's his meme, okay? Because in the point of it, what hit me is no sin is too great for God to forgive. I mean, this guy did a lot of dirty deeds, right? So here's his meme. He says, I know the resurrection is a fact, and Watergate proved it to me. How? Because 12 men testified they had seen Jesus raised from the dead, and then they had proclaimed that truth for 40 years, never once denying it. Everyone was beaten, stoned, tortured, and put in prison. They would not have endured that if it weren't true. Watergate embroiled 12 of the most powerful men in the world. Now he's talking about a different 12, not the apostles. Mm-hmm. And they couldn't keep alive for 3 weeks, he said. You're telling me 12 apostles could keep alive for 40 years? Absolutely impossible. That's what Charles Colson said. They could not keep alive for 40 years if what they were saying was absolutely not true. And so, I just thought it was cute that, some people, and he put it in his own words, of course, but I have 2 really important articles that I've read over the holiday. Actually, it was after everyone left yesterday.
The first chance you got.
The first chance I got to just take a breath, right? Put it that way. But they were both from Crisis Magazine. I don't know if you get that or not, but the one is called The Ballad of Judas Iscariot and the Burden of Lent. And this is really beautiful. He talks about Sean Fitzpatrick, who is a great author. He talks about the Ballad of Judas Iscariot. It was a poem. He said it wasn't necessarily a great poem, but it was a gripping poem by Robert Williams Buchanan. And he said it puzzles people from time to time because he depicted the soul of Judas Iscariot bearing the dead body of Judas away from the field of blood. Okay, so this is all in his mind, right? And he ends up, everyone just despises the man who would betray Jesus like that. Absolutely. And so he ended up walking through the snow and to a wedding feast. And the poem basically says, laying his shameful body in the snow before the door, Judas flits feverishly to and fro amid the fierce denunciations of the wedding guests who were saying, scourge the soul of Judas Iscariot away into the night. When the bridegroom himself stands forth to address the disturbance, the body of Judas is suddenly taken to its rest, and the soul of Judas is taken in by the bridegroom with astonishing words. Okay, now this is all in the mind of Robert Williams Buchanan, right? Mm-hmm. He's at the final words were, the Holy Supper is spread within, and the many candles shine. And this is the bridegroom now talking to Judas. And I have waited long for thee before I poured the wine. Now, okay, basically what he's saying is Judas played a part in bringing about the glory of God, though his was a terrible part to play. And, he brings out the idea there's never so much room for grace than in a hopeless case. Because what the church is always saying to us is we never have a right to assume Judas's damnation. Neither is it ever right to presume upon God's mercy. He said men must trust and persevere, and that is the secret of Lent. And so then he goes to Pope John Paul, whom you know how much I love. Pope John Paul said, what a mistake those who do not hope make. Judas made a huge blunder the day in which he sold Christ for 30 pieces of silver, but he made an even bigger one when he thought that his sin was too great to be forgiven. No sin is too big, he said. Any wretchedness, however great, can always be enclosed in infinite mercy. Mm-hmm. So this, I thought, was beautiful. Yeah. And now, we're not saying, Judas is in heaven. No one's saying that. That would totally not be at all theological. But we must be, as Bishop Sheen said, tolerant to persons because they are human, but we must be intolerant about principles because they are divine. Tolerant to the erring because ignorance may have led them astray, but we must be intolerant to the error, because truth is not our making, but God's. So anyway, it's called The Ballad of Judas Iscariot and the Burden of Lent. And I think it's beautiful, Elena. Lent is over now, but we all realize that the church calls us to radical sanctity.
Yes.
Radical sanctity. And some people think it's almost too extreme in her demands. She's too extreme. But at the same time, she is extreme in her mercy. And this is what we have to look at as well. And, it's just a beautiful thing. I know we have callers, so we'll go on. There's one more article that I want to refer people to, and if we have time later in the show, I'll try to do that as well.
We'll come back to that, and it's always time to talk about you and your pro-life questions and issues here on EWTN's Open Line Tuesday with Barbara McGuigan, the pro-life warrior princess with all issues pro-life from womb to tomb. You can give us a call, 1-800-585-9396. Stay tuned for more of EWTN Radio.
Father Larry Richards.
You know, I'm from the city of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and both of my parents, both of them, were police officers. My father was a police officer, and my mother was a police officer. They always thought I'd be a cop, too, and in some ways I am, a spiritual cop. But we keep doing what we do, and we come from wherever we come from, it doesn't matter. Where God is calling us is what's most important.
Open Line with Father Larry Richards, Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio.
The wisdom of Mother Angelica.
When Padre Pio was asked, what's the worst sin in the world? I was surprised when he said, curiosity. Wasn't that a surprise, huh? Curiosity. Well, it worked with Adam and Eve. How many youngsters in high school are curious? And young boys curious? And drug addicts started because they were curious. What I got to think about it, I thought, curiosity. We're just like old Adam and Eve. We want to know evil. Then when we know, we can't handle it.
For more information on Mother Angelica, visit Religious Catalog at EWTNRC.com.
EWTN Religious Catalog is your online destination for Catholic books, DVDs, rosaries, devotionals, and every purchase directly supports EWTN's mission. Ready to shop? Visit EWTNRC.com today.
This is Al Kresta, host of Kresta in the Afternoon.
Hello, this is Bill Donahue from the Catholic League.
This is Janet Benkovic, host of Women of Grace. From all of us here at the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network, Happy Easter.
This is Open Line on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. If you have a question or comment, call 1-800-585-9396. Outside North America, call 1-205-271-2985 or send an email to openline@ewtn.com.
15 minutes past the hour. This is Elena Rodriguez. If you're just now joining our EWTN Open Line Tuesday broadcast, welcome. And we want to wish you a very happy Easter on this Easter octave. And as Barbara was very beautifully giving us a reflection about Easter forgiveness and the joy and the hope of the resurrection. The Easter season goes on for 50 days. So whether you had a good or bad or a very trying Lent, that was 40 days. Now we get 50 days to rejoice in the Easter resurrection and celebrate it up until Pentecost. And so you hear the beautiful voice of Barbara McGuigan, our host here, and we want to have your questions. Open Line Tuesday. Pro-life questions with Barbara McGuigan. The number, 1-800-585-9396. That again is 1-800-585-9396. Perhaps you are wondering what is going to be the future of the pro-life movement given the context, historical context in which we find ourselves here in our country, in the United States. Maybe you have some pro-life questions that apply to yet another country, another issue that is comparable to what is going on in the United States. If you are inside the United States, give us a call. Talk to Barbara McGuigan, 1-800-585-9396. If you're outside the United States and or Canada, you can call our international number, and that is country code 1, then 205-271-2985. That number again is country code 1, then 205-271-2985 to talk to Barbara McGuigan. Maybe you have someone in the parish who has approached you with a pro-life question. This is the time to bounce it off a pro-life expert, Barbara McGuigan. And Roy has been very patiently waiting in the city, in the state of New York. He is listening to EWTN Radio through Stations of the Cross. I love that name for a radio station. Roy, what's your question for Barbara McGuigan?
Hi, Roy.
Yeah, hello.
Hi, how can we help?
Yes, my wife and I both, I'm 70, and my wife and I both have willed our bodies to medical science so future surgeons can learn their craft.
Right.
And the obligation was that they would have our bodies upon our death. We call a number, and they have somebody come pick up our body, and then 2 years they have our body, and then after that they give burn the bodies, cremate the bodies, and they give the ashes to the people that we had designated. And I was wondering what the view of the church is on that kind of a situation.
Well, the church does permit cremation. It does permit it, but at least for the funeral mass that you have, the church would like the bodies. It welcomed your body as a tiny baby in baptism, and now the church would like to have your body in the coffin right there when they say the funeral mass. That's the desire of the church. Put it that way. Sometimes when you do have a cremation, they have some kind of a little jar or bottle sitting there with the ashes. Sometimes it's just kind of a service that they have with no body or ashes at all. So it's up to you totally, but I really think that you can see the beauty of having the body at the funeral mass, to send the body to God. That, in other words, we welcome the body in, and now we're giving it a good send-off. What do you think of that, Roy?
I don't know. They were pretty specific about the obligations that right upon the death that we call the number, and they dispatch undertaker to take the body right to the college.
Oh, well, the church is not against donating your body to science if that's what you want to do. I've never been told anything otherwise. So what I would do is talk to your priest. How about that? That would be a good idea, and he could help you maybe clarify this a little bit better. Is that a good idea? Okay,
yeah,
great.
It kind of frets me a little bit over the years. I'm saying, what if I'm making a mistake here? Will I gain entrance to heaven?
Well, the way you live is the most important thing, but and how you die is the next important thing. So you want to die certainly in the grace of God, in sanctifying grace. That's the most important thing. But like I say, they would like the body there if it's possible for your funeral mass. I would like that too, don't you think?
I wonder if I could call the people and ask if before they take my body in, maybe a priest could come or something. I don't know.
Well, that would be something good to do, I think, Roy. And you could talk to your pastor and find out exactly what he thinks about this situation. And I know the church is not opposed to cremation, but when we buried my dad, he did not, well, he wanted to be cremated, but my mom told him no, he couldn't be cremated. So anyway, so we buried him under a big oak tree. But it was a beautiful ceremony. The church has the wisdom of God, see? So, I mean, they know the best thing for us and how to say the best goodbye. So thank you so much for your call, Roy. God bless you, good man.
God bless you, Roy. And we go to an international location, Barbara. We go to Michelle in Windsor, Ontario, listening through EWTN.com online. Michelle, what is your question for Barbara McGuigan?
Hello,
Hi,
Michelle.
Barbara. Hi there. Thank you for taking my call.
Of course.
I was just wondering if you could help me out. I need some resources, please, and it has to do with WAGs, the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts.
Right.
Well, recently at my church, sadly, cookies were sold at Easter time. And prior to Easter, I had heard a couple of your shows. I love listening to your show. And it was brought to my attention that this organization, WAGs, is very much affiliated with the UN and UNICEF, and I can't remember the other organizations, but just the two I mentioned are heavily linked with they're pro-abortion, basically, is what I'm trying to get at, pro-euthanasia, and all of the things that the church is against morally. And anyhow, I had brought this to the attention of a couple of parishioners, and one has challenged me, and that's fine. And she said, I would like more proof. I'm going to look for it myself as well. And she said, and you should know that, pardon me, this wasn't her argument. This was somebody else's argument. I was told that these are only concerns for Americans. It doesn't apply to Canadians. But again, WAGs, it stands for World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts, right?
Right, exactly.
I understand that there are many countries under that umbrella.
Yes, of course. Well, here's what I'd like you to do. I can give you all of the email addresses or websites rather, that you need to do all your research. We've talked about this many times on Open Line. One that comes to my mind, mygirlscoutcouncil.com is one, but I have a whole list that you can go to, and we just talked about this not too long ago, didn't we, Elena?
Yes, we did. I think it was 3 weeks.
On my poor brain, I could rattle off all these, but at the moment I can't. So I'd like you to go to Open Line at EWTN.com. Open Line at EWTN.com, and put my name in the title so they know exactly who to get it to, and then I will give you the whole list, the whole lowdown. Okay?
Oh, that would be wonderful. Thank you. And that would be enough to prove that this also applies to the Canadian Girl Guides as well.
Oh, sure, because it's an international organization. Yeah, they've just moved way to the left. The left. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we won't talk about it so much now, if that's okay with you. But I will send
you have other callers waiting.
That's all right. But I will send you everything you need. Okay.
Okay, Barbara. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you for calling, dear heart. Bye-bye now.
Bye. God bless you, Michelle. We go to Hearn, Texas, where Betty is listening to EWTN Radio. Betty, we have a couple of minutes. Go right ahead with your question, my dear.
Hi, Betty.
Hi.
Hi.
I was wondering, I have a criminal justice degree, and I know DNA plays a big part in identifying people.
It sure does.
So my question is this. When a fetus is inside the mother's womb, and then it's born, it has the DNA of both parents.
Right.
But it also has its own special set of DNA.
That's right.
At what point does that fetus have its own set of DNA?
I would say at the moment of conception, right? Because the minute the egg, the sperm penetrates the egg, you have the DNA from the mother, the DNA from the father, and that's the DNA. Then it becomes the DNA of the baby, his own DNA. So I would say that it would happen at conception or shortly thereafter, but it would be conception.
So, for instance, then you say, let's just hypothetical. If a fetus could commit a crime, you could point back to that certain fetus. So that fetus has its own individual body, person, while in the womb, which would make it its own individual.
That's exactly right. And if you took his little, as soon as he forms fingers and you put take his little thumbprint, it would be unlike any person that's ever been created in the entire universe ever. His own thumbprint.
That is remarkable. Thank you very much, Betty, for that question. Here on EWTN's Open Line Tuesday with Barbara McGuigan, you can call in with your pro-life question, and that number is 1-800-585-9396. That number again is 1-800-585-9396. We will be right back with more of your questions with Barbara McGuigan. Stay tuned.
EWTN News Nightly with Lauren Ashburn.
I've been a journalist in Washington for 25 years. I've covered car chases, 9/11, hurricanes. At this point in my career is my time to make a difference. EWTN News Nightly takes our Christian Catholic values and shines a light on what the government is or isn't doing and attempts to spur them to action.
EWTN News Nightly with Lauren Ashburn. Weekdays at 9 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio.
The EWTN home video highlight for April is Fatima, Altar of the World. This documentary testifies to the profound connection between heaven and Fatima. You'll also receive a beautiful one-of-a-kind centennial rosary dedicated to the 100th anniversary of the Fatima apparitions created by Gorelli. Order your DVD and centennial rosary set at EWTNRC.com, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or call 1-800-854-6316.
Hello, this is Brian Kemper of Priest for Life with Pro-Life Update. On Easter, many throughout the world are baptized into the church, and those already baptized renew their vows of their baptism. By baptism, we are immersed in the new life of Christ and welcomed into the community of those who believe in the Catholic faith. Thanks to baptism, God looks at us through the eyes of His Son and says, "You are my child. You died on the cross, therefore you will rise from the dead." Baptism is a sacrament of welcome. God chooses us long before we choose, and all the chosen welcome each other. This is the exact opposite of the mindset of abortion, which ignores God's choice and says that we can choose not to welcome children into the community. Let's thank God for baptism and for life. This is Brian Kemper on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
This is Open Line on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. If you have a question or comment, call 1-800-585-9396. Outside North America, call 1-205-271-2985 or send an email to openline@ewtn.com.
29 minutes past the hour here on EWTN Radio, bringing you very exclusively EWTN Open Line Tuesday with Barbara McGuigan, our pro-life warrior princess, answering today, as every Tuesday, pro-life questions from womb to tomb. Perhaps you have engaged with someone, maybe in social media, maybe Facebook, one of those outlets, who is trying to say something like, you have to respect women's right to choose whether to carry on with that pregnancy or not. It's the woman's individual choice, and if you break that choice, then you are being anti-woman. Something like that. How would you answer that effectively? Lovingly, but effectively. You have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity here to bounce that question off Barbara McGuigan, and the way to do it is to call our toll-free number, 1-800-585-9396. That number again is 1-800-585-9396. We still have a few lines open for there to jump in. 1-800-585-9396 to talk to Barbara McGuigan. And another way that our dear listeners join us for conversation here is by writing us an email, openline@ewtn.com. And that is what our friend Robert did. And he has a question for you, Barbara. I'm going to read it real quick here so we can get your answer. Okay. It says, my wife and I have been married for 6 years, and we're married 6 years ago, and we've tried to have a baby for the last 2 years. I'm 46 and she is 42, says Robert. She's a Protestant, I'm a Catholic. although she agrees with my position on birth control, after a few months being off of birth control, she was on before we met, he explains that, Robert's wife developed massive cysts and has extremely above average painful cramps. Robert says the two of them have spoken to the doctor, and the doctor understands their position, and he has to put her on birth control to get rid of those cysts. They do work, but after a couple of months, she will get off of them and will try again. She will always develop them again and again. So Robert's question is, does the church allow them to take birth control if it is medically necessary and they are truly not trying to prevent the pregnancy?
Okay. You know what? First of all, I wanted to get my good friend Dr. Teresa Stegan's input on this exactly. Because the church does, they do not have an actual official position on this. They always quote Humani Vitae, but when Humani Vitae was written by Pope Paul VI and released in 1968, we weren't really certain about how birth control pills worked as far as their abortifacient nature. So this enters into a married couple situation, not to nuns in the Congo that could have a chance of being raped, right? In other words, so it was said that because they were not trying to avoid life, to keep from having a child, that it would be okay if they took some method of birth control. Birth control pills, I guess you would put it at that point in time. Okay, Dr. Teresa Stegan, here's the short answer. NAPRO technology would definitely be the better way to go. Getting cysts and painful menstrual cycles like that is her body telling her that something's wrong and it needs to be addressed, not covered up with oral contraception. She said, I advise that she see her local NAPRO doc, especially a fellowship-trained one. That's the first time I've heard that one, that comment from her. And she gives you a NAPRO provider directory, which can be found at www.fertilitycare.org. Fertilitycare, all one word, .org. Then she brings this up as well. On the moral side, technically, Humani Vitae does allow for oral contraceptive pills to be used strictly for medical purposes, though at the time it was written, as I just said earlier, the abortifacient effects of oral contraception were not clearly understood. Now, with the knowledge that we have about the abortifacient mechanism of oral contraceptive pills, it can't really be morally used in a married couple. You could potentially argue it's okay in a celibate woman, just as I said, in the nuns, but the health problems, here's the kicker, the health problems that oral contraceptive pills cause make it a poor health choice, even if it could be a moral choice in that situation. So that is coming from a doctor, a fertility specialist, an OBGYN as well. So that's an important thing. That's an important thing to keep in mind. So, Robert, I would advise that you do what the doctor said, right? Get in touch with a NAPRO doc is what you need at fertilitycare.org. You'll be able to find one in your area.
Fertilitycare.org.
That's it.
Very well.
Yep.
Thank you very much, Barbara. You can call in with your pro-life questions, and right now there's only one line open. I'm going to give this number to you. Hope you have pen and paper ready, and it's 1-800. Actually, not that one. It just got... there's only one line. So here's the other number, 1-205-271-2985. It's happening right before our very eyes. 1-205-271-2985 to get on the air with Barbara McGuigan and ask your pro-life question. We go to Jim, who is in Austin, Texas, listening to EWTN Radio through Sirius XM 130. Jim, your question for Barbara McGuigan, please.
It's a question and part of an question and part of an answer. The guy asked me to be brief. So, my question is, why have pro-life people not been more, shall we say, promoting a sense of pain inside people when they talk about it? And I'll express my answer to that, is that if it's not life, then it's death. that's called miscarriage, right? If it's not human, is it a lizard or a snake? I've done that with people, and they recoil. I said, but you said it's not human. If it's not human, then what is it? Please tell me what it is.
That's exactly right. If you just removed any of the cells and a geneticist put them under a microscope, you would see that it is human. They are human cells. Not vegetable, not animal, whatever. And that is from the moment of conception. So, Jim, that's a good point. You're making a good point, good man.
Am I still in line?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. The second point is this, is people need to understand the foundation of anything they choose. And that's not being done in America or maybe the world. Question is, if women want a choice, men want choices. If women want a choice, then the choice by definition is an abortion versus ice cream and cake. The question is, why not make that choice before you get pregnant? Don't get pregnant in the first place.
Well, you see, and that's...
No, hang on a second. The point is they're not saying it hard enough. And I was in the entertainment business. And the one thing I learned when I promoted people is this. If you don't give them a little bit of pain, they're not going to listen to you. So the pain in what I have content here is, like, if it's not human, then what is it? And then they feel that pain, like, oh, my God, don't talk like that. I said, but you said it's not human. Give me the definition of what it is. They can't, of course, and they're locked down. We have to wake people up, is the point. We have to make them feel some pain in their conscience if they have one, and that's the way to do it. Same thing
well,
with
sometimes that works great, Jim. Sometimes it works really good. Sometimes you have to be a little more gentle. Because what we're trying to teach them, and you're wise in what you're saying, that sexuality has a structure. You know, it has a proper end. It has a purpose. See, and the purpose is for bonding and for babies. That's the very simple way to put it. Unitive and procreative is how the Pope Paul VI put it in Humani Vitae. But they don't get that often, Jim. They don't always get that because they've never been taught. This is what I'm saying. So this is, once again, where it comes in with the church. The church calls us to raise the bar. You know, if the whole idea is, and what you're saying is good, abortion would never be necessary if you were not abusing your sexuality by, any type of sex outside of marriage, You would never have to worry about becoming pregnant outside of marriage. Or even within marriage, if you were doing things as the church teaches. The voice of the Holy Spirit is who guides the church, of course. So, good points. And as far as, the suffering, they do have suffering. They do have suffering eventually, and we all do. We're all sinners. We all, have consequences from our sin. And sin doesn't just affect us. It affects everyone around us. So, you're making some good points, Jim. Thank you so much for calling the show.
Thank you, Jim, listening there in Austin, Texas. And Barbara, you were just referencing suffering. And that just reminded me, Mother Angelica has a wonderful book called It's on Suffering and Burnout. So it is one of those timeless classics. And you can actually get it this week at the EWTN Religious Catalog at a discount. They have it bundled with a beautiful 4-inch statue of El Divino Niño, which is the same statue that's outside the shrine in the piazza in Hansville, Alabama, the Shrine of the Most Blessed Sacrament. So that white El Divino Niño statue that inspired Mother to build the shrine, bundled along with the Mother Angelica book on suffering and burnout, is at a special 20% discount. I just happen to know this, so I'm just passing it along. If you want to take advantage of that, you can check it out. Check out the description. Go to EWTNRC.com. That's EWTNRC.com. And you type in on the search bar BUN for bundle, BUN, and it'll all come up so that you can take a look at it.
And thank you for that, because that's to talk about suffering. That's an important thing, because Teresa Burke wrote a tremendous article years ago on abortion and post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's really quite incredible. And what she says is that, I mean, just to give a few examples, she said, Joan, I'm sure she uses different names.
Sure.
Joan can't bring herself to vacuum the rugs in her home because of acute panic attacks. They paralyze her when she is reminded of the suction machine used to terminate her pregnancy. Terry is plagued by nightmares. There's always a little girl crying for mommy with her arms outstretched and her eyes filled with fear and abandon. Terry usually takes strong barbiturates each night to avoid this painful nocturnal phenomenon. And then you have Patricia. She's become an alcoholic since her abortion, which is not uncommon. They try to numb the senses because it's so painful, the suffering that is caused by taking the life of an innocent human person. She says Jillian becomes traumatized each time she makes a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for her daughter. The jelly reminds her of blood clots that she passed after her abortion. I mean, my goodness. Yes, there is suffering any time we go against God's plan. No matter what it is, there will be suffering. This is why we have Catholic radio, to prevent people from having to deal with this kind of stuff, you know?
We want to give you a heads up that this is happening out there. Maybe it has happened to you or somebody you know, and you would like to know how to talk to somebody who's gone through this horrific experience of abortion. You can do that by calling 1-800-585-9396 and talking to Barbara McGuigan. She is on every Tuesday during Open Line at 3 p.m. Eastern. And the number again is 1-800-585-9396. That is the number that Nick called. He is listening to EWTN Radio on Catholic Radio Network in Aurora, Colorado. Nick, your question for Barbara McGuigan.
Hi, Nick.
Hi. This is more of just some information on the DNA, because one of your callers had mentioned something about DNA. But I think back in the early 50s, these two gentlemen, there was a Eucharistic miracle in Buenos Aires when Pope Francis was a cardinal there.
Okay.
And after about 2 years, he allowed them to do some pathological analysis of the host that had turned to flesh and blood.
Yes.
And then there's a statue in South America that has the crown of thorns, and that sheds blood and tears also. But when they did the analysis of the blood, they found DNA but no genetic signature. And the genetic signature comes from a human father and mother.
There you go.
You know, that was really interesting about the fact that the Eucharistic miracle, that it kind of, I guess it proves in a way that Jesus did not have a human father.
Well, that makes a point. I've never heard of that one. What I thought was so amazing, and I think this would go back to Lanciano, the miracle at Lanciano. There's a whole book on this. Bob and Penny Lord, you can get it on EWTN. They wrote a whole book on Eucharistic miracles. They are amazing. Just amazing. Like, I've never heard the one you just mentioned, but the Eucharistic miracle, look it up, the miracle of Lanciano, Lanciano.
Yeah.
Nick,
I've read
you've heard of
that
it?
one also.
What amazed me about this, it was not an outer slice, the host, was not an outer slice of the heart of Jesus, because it is heart muscle. They can prove that, but it was like a cross section, like through the heart of Jesus in this miracle, and that just astounded me. And so look up this book, by Bob and Penny Lord on Eucharistic miracles. It is amazing. And thank you for your call, Nick.
Thank you, Nick. Barbara, I have been in Lanciano. And
you have? Good, you saw it.
It is a wonderful experience. And yes, they have discovered that is tissue from the heart as a cross-section, as you said, from a male human of the human species in his 30s.
There you
and
go.
The blood type coincides with the blood type of the Holy Shroud of Turin. So if you don't have goosebumps by now.
It's so amazing. I don't have all, I'm glad you brought that up, Elena. I don't have all those facts in my brain at this moment, but it is quite a miracle. And there are other Eucharistic miracles as well.
Yes,
that prove the same exact thing.
Yes, that is a wonderful book by Bob and Penny Lord on Eucharistic miracles. So, Nick, thank you very much for bringing that up. That is absolutely wonderful. And we go to Louise in Freehold, New Jersey, listening to EWTN Radio through the wonderful apostolate of domestic church media. Louise, your question for Barbara McGuigan.
Hi, Louise.
Good afternoon. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Our church here, we're trying to put together our second prayerful protest to defund Planned Parenthood locally here. It's very sad we have one right in our town. So, but the problem, we're getting pushback from other people right within our Catholic Church.
Of course you are.
Yeah,
of course you are.
I was actually stunned, but anyway.
You're in good company, my lady. You're in good company.
One of the people wrote back to someone else who's helping me get people on the ground here, and she wrote that she respects our opinions, faith, and right to protest, but she says no taxpayer money goes towards elective abortions. On the contrary, Planned Parenthood offers poor women desperately needed health care, counseling, and advice. And so she doesn't understand why we find it so unacceptable. Besides the fact that abortions are unacceptable to us, she doesn't understand why Planned Parenthood should be put out of business. So she wants sources and facts that are not Catholic, sources and facts.
That are not Catholic. And she's Catholic? She's Catholic?
Yeah, on how little Planned Parenthood does. So how little does Planned Parenthood do if you have sources and facts on how little they do?
How little they do. Okay, 8 out of 10 women who walk out of a Planned Parenthood clinic have aborted. Okay, 8 out of 10. And when Donald Trump said that, hey, you've been saying all these years that Planned Parenthood, only 3% of their work is with abortion. So I don't want to really take away $500 million, $500 million from you. He said, just stop doing abortions. Just stop your 3%. Okay? I mean, you can see right through this. They were just appalled that he would suggest they drop their 3% because it's not 3%. It's not 3%. And as a matter of fact, I just read, it's the bulk of their business. Planned Parenthood President Cecile Richards will join Democratic National Committee Chairman Tom Perez and Senator Bernie Sanders from Vermont on the final leg of their national tour later this month, this very month, because the party is trying to mobilize all the so-called progressives against President Trump's actions targeting funding for abortion providers. They are running scared because before President Obama left office, he signed into an executive order, right? Obviously, it was overturned by President Trump that required state and local governments to distribute federal Title X funding to all healthcare providers, irrespective of whether the providers also perform abortions. And so what Trump has basically said is, hey, no federal funds may be used for abortion services under this current law that Vice President Pence just signed. This is what just happened. Elena, last week, 2 weeks ago, something like that, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, this they're running scared now because they're losing their money, and they know exactly what. See, you can't go against God's plan without a consequence. You can't kill the image and likeness of God Almighty in the child's mother's womb and not expect to have consequences. These are just monetary ones. This is a piece of cake, really. When you put it in the whole scheme of things, you put it in perspective. What happens to the souls of people who take the lives of innocent human beings in the womb? Well, that's up to God. That's up to God, no question about it. But I don't think he's going to look on it too well, because to destroy his image and likeness is not a good thing to do. You've heard of attempted suicide? Abortion is attempted deicide. You can't kill God, that's for sure. So you want to kill the image and likeness of God. I'm not saying this is the way every person thinks who has an abortion. I'm not saying every person that works at Planned Parenthood, it even assists in abortion. I'm not saying they even understand this, but whether they do or not, this is reality. And that's why we talk about this, to bring people back into the light. Walk out of the darkness into the light of reality. Thank you for your call, Louise. God bless you, good lady. Keep it up.
Thank you very much, Louise. And we go to Tina, who is in Traverse City, Michigan, listening to EWTN Radio through Berga Radio Broadcasting. And Tina, we just have a couple of minutes. Please go ahead with your question.
Hi. Yeah, I'm pro-life, and I have a friend that is basically pro-choice. She's had an abortion before, and has said that she does not regret the fact that she's had an abortion. She's very supportive of me in my pro-life stance. But I can definitely tell through her actions that her abortion has gravely affected her. When I was the same age that she was when she had her abortion, and I was a single parent or a single mother, and I refused an abortion, she's basically considered like she's like adopted my daughter in her mind, and I see that as a way that she kind of regrets her abortion as far as like taking up identity with my daughter. And she also doesn't see the problems with supporting Planned Parenthood, that even though they do provide abortions, that they offer so many other services to women. And my question is, how do I graciously minister to someone like her that is obviously very, very scarred psychologically and emotionally, but she just doesn't come out of that? How do I evangelize to her?
Very articulate question, and I thank you for it. We just have a couple minutes, but what I would like to say, Tina, is you must tell her how much God loves her. She needs to walk into the light, that you can tell by some of her actions or moods or whatever it is, that you can tell that she's suffering, because she will be. She will be eventually. When you think that so many people in 2 generations now, politicians, doctors, corporations, universities, who else? Churches, and ordinary men and women, they've based their lives, their careers, and some of them actually have staked their souls on the belief that killing a child is the right thing to do, when it isn't. We are going against God and everything that he stands for. The devil is about death. God is about life. Choose life is what he tells us. You want to give her a future full of hope. What I would do is my best to sit down and talk to her. Let her read number 99 in Evangelium Vitae, number 99, because Pope John Paul, now St. John Paul, said he wanted to say a special word to women who have had an abortion. I would start there. Start there. And then take it from there. The Holy Spirit will guide your words. He will help you. Be gentle. She's in severe pain.
And we need to keep her and everyone who's in that situation in our prayers, right, Barbara?
Amen. Absolutely.
Barbara,
God
thank you very much. God loves her. God loves you. Thank you very much for your firm pro-life stance.
And he loves you too.
Amen to that. I'm very happy about that.
Thank you, Elena.
And thank you. We'll have you on next week on Open Line Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern, right?
Right, that's right.
And the Good Fight this Saturday.
Oh, God willing, yes.
So a lot of Barbara McGuigan. My thanks to Matt Kubinski, our call screener, Jeff Burson, Mr. Nice Person with social media, and Father Larry Richards will be with us tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern on Open Line, so stay tuned.